Good morning, Townsend. Good evening, whenever you're watching this. I thought I'd make the most of the sunshine today, so our community Bible study is coming at you from the Woodbury Avenue car park. You can't see that, what you can see is the metal container in the background, but don't let that distract you. Now I've pointed it out. I wonder, what are you like at making decisions? When we sit down in our house in the evening, once the kids have gone to bed, watch TV, we put the TV on, and I am rubbish at choosing what to watch. I'm always like, nah, Fee, you decide, you choose. We can watch that. Oh, no, I don't fancy that. What about this? Maybe that. No, not that. Oh, I've seen that one. Have I seen it? Have you seen that? Not sure. We spend so long trying to choose something to watch and passing the buck, responsibility for who's going to choose, who's going to pick. No, I chose last night. No, your turn. By the time we've picked something, it's time to go to bed and we never actually get to watch it. Now, let's be honest, it doesn't really matter what we watch. We're going to watch something, we might enjoy it, but it's not a life or death choice, is it? It doesn't really matter to you, it doesn't really matter to us what we watch, but it's a hard one. I just can't choose. So when it comes to important decisions, it's important to make proper, informed choices, isn't it? Based on what's true. I wouldn't like to be someone like Boris Johnson right now having to choose what to do next with the future of our country. Whatever you think of the bloke, I bet you don't fancy having his job right now. It seems so hard to know what is true with all the stats and opinions flying around. He must be bombarded from every side trying to make some kind of sense of it. That's how I feel trying to choose on Netflix, bombarded from all these different sides of what I should choose, but it's much more important for him, isn't it? In tonight's community Bible study, we get to watch in as a Roman governor, their version of Boris Johnson 2,000 years ago, has to make a decision on who Jesus is and what should happen to him. He's bombarded with opinions, questions from all over the place. And we get to see how good he is at making decisions. So crack open your Bible, get open your phone, Google it, whatever you need to do. We are in John chapter 18, verse 28. Let me read. I'm going to read down to verse 40. Then the Jewish leaders took Jesus from Caiaphas to the palace of the Roman governor. By now it was early morning, and to avoid ceremonial uncleanness, they did not enter the palace, because they wanted to be able to eat the Passover. So Pilate came out to them and asked, "What charges are you bringing against this man?" "If he were not a criminal," they replied, "we wouldn't have handed him over to you." Pilate said, "Take him yourselves and judge him by your own law." "But we've got no right to execute anyone," they objected. This took place to fulfill what Jesus had said about the kind of death he was going to die. Pilate then went back inside the palace, summoned Jesus and asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" "Is that your own idea?" Jesus asked. "Or did others talk to you about me?" "I am a Jew," Pilate replied. Am I a Jew?" Pilate replied. "Your own people and chief priests handed you over to me. What is it you've done?" Jesus said, "My kingdom is not of this world. If it were, my servants would fight to prevent my arrest by the Jewish leaders. But now my kingdom is from another place." "Ah, you are a king then," said Pilate. Jesus answered, "You say that I'm a king. In fact, the reason I was born and came into the world is to testify to the truth. Everyone on the side of truth listens to me." "What is truth?" retorted Pilate. With this, he went out again to the Jews gathered there and said, "I find no basis for a charge against him. But it is your custom for me to release to you one prisoner at a time, at the time of the Passover. Do you want me to release the king of the Jews?" They shouted back, "No, not him. Give us Barabbas." Now Barabbas had taken part in an uprising. Here we go. So, the Jewish leaders have arrested Jesus in the garden. They've had their own kangaroo court for him. And they've marched him to Pilate, the big Roman boss in Jerusalem. And they walk up to the door and hand Jesus over to him. Throw him on the steps. Here you go. You sort him out. Did you notice? Just stop there. They won't even go into the governor's palace, his headquarters, because John tells us that would defile them. Now this is crazy. It feels like John's being a bit sarcastic here with us. These Jewish leaders have marched Jesus there because they've decided they want to kill him. They can't kill him themselves. So they're going to get this big boss man to do it for them. So they're going to push Jesus into the back door, get this guy knocked off. But because they think they're so religious, they can't even go into this guy's house, into the palace. Because their Jewish tradition says to go into a foreigner's house makes you dirty. So if they're ceremonially dirty, unclean, And they won't be able to take the Passover meal, which is what they're all in Jerusalem for. So do you see the significance of that? They're killing God by bending the system and going in by the back door. They're corrupt as anyone. But they think that stepping into this fella's office is going to make God sad with them. John includes this to show us how ridiculous they are, I think. But also it shines a light on us, doesn't it? It's an exact picture of how we can approach God if we're not careful. We put it bluntly, doing stuff never makes us clean before God. We can never be accepted before God because deep down inside we're so corrupt we could never do enough to get to God. Now that sounds rough, doesn't it? These guys was, come on mate, we're not going into that ceremonially dirty place. That's what we're supposed to do, our tradition says that. All right guys, that might be a good thing to do, but at the same time you're going in the back door to have Jesus murdered. How good is that? And you might say the same, come on Tom, I haven't murdered anybody. I turn up to church on a Sunday. I've even been listening to your Bible studies through lockdown. Surely that makes me a good person. It's going to make God happy, isn't it? But look deep into yourself. And as you look deep into yourself, you see what God sees. Your life, your thoughts and your heart, there may be good there. God made us good. But our rebellion against God, trying to do things our way, the sin, that's what the Bible calls it, the sin, goes deep inside us. And it needs punishing once and for all. And that's bad news. But don't worry, it's not just bad news. It's not just here to scare you. There is good news. That's exactly why Jesus is on this journey to the cross. He said, my hour has come. I've come for this. That's why Jesus calls himself the way, the truth, and the life. He's the only one who can make us clean before God. His death on the cross is the only place we can go to be right with God. All we do is to believe in him. And that's going to bring change in your life. It's likely to make you look like a better person because how you think and how you live will be transformed by God. But it doesn't make us clean before God. It's him transforming us, and it's us living in a way in response to God loving us. It's our heart attitude towards Jesus that matters. It's not how clean you are, where you wash, when you eat, when you pray, whether you pray in an open church building or not, or whether you go into the palace guard or not. What is your heart's attitude to Jesus? Do you see your need for him to take your punishment for sin on the cross? If you do, then your faith in Jesus is enough. If you've got nothing more than that, that is enough to make you clean before God. You have more cleanness, ceremonial cleanness, than those guys ever had. Now, back to the passage. Pilate moves on to question them. He says, why have you brought them to me? Why do you want me to kill this guy? And do you notice they don't actually have a reason? Their response is, look mate, he just needs to die. He's evil, trust us. You just get on with it, will you? Don't ask us questions, we'll make life easy for you. Now the truth is, Jesus was making life difficult for these Jewish rulers because he challenged their whole way of life, all of their life choices, all of their power structures, all of their institutions, and they wanted rid of him. Now I wonder if that's your attitude to Jesus. You haven't really got any excuses, you haven't really got any reasons, but maybe he challenges your life choices. He challenges your personal freedom and your feeling of power. So I'll just ignore him. We'll do away with him. He can't be important. Now, if that's you, let me challenge you to actually confront Jesus. Get up close to him, read the book of John again, and see if following him is really worth it. Yes, he's going to challenge you. If you follow him, he will challenge you more. Becoming a Christian doesn't make life easier. Actually, the challenges from Jesus get harder and harder as you go, but we do it in his strength then. But Jesus is who he says he is, so he says, believe in me. And then John adds this little line after that interaction between Pilate and the Jewish leaders. Verse 32, he says, they said this to fulfill what Jesus had been saying about how he would die. So Jesus predicted he would die in this way. He predicted beforehand these things would happen. We saw this last week. God hasn't lost the plot. Far from it. God planned this, and he's executing his plan to perfection because he knows this is the only way. Now, no other religious leader or world leader or business leader, no influencer has ever thought it was a good plan to kill themselves to skyrocket their cause in front of the world. And if they did think that, then their influence probably died off with them. Jesus is in total control of his own death. And yet Jesus has influenced more people in history than any other human being. He has more followers through history than anybody else. And Christianity is still growing around the world as we speak, more than we quickly than we realize. And all of that is because of this moment. Jesus is going to the cross. His mission is to save people through the cross. He is in control. But Pilate definitely isn't in control, is he? He can't make a decision to save his life, literally. You wouldn't trust Pilate with your Netflix remote, would you? So he goes back and he asks Jesus some questions. So, are you the king of the Jews? He's taking him into the inner circle. He's asking him some questions. He's effectively asking, should I really be killing you? Are you a threat to the Roman Empire? Will Caesar have problems with you? And if you say yes to this, then that makes my job easy. You've made my decision for me. Tell me you're a king. Tell me you're trouble, and we'll just kill you. But Jesus doesn't give him a simple answer. He never just gives a simple answer, does he? He doesn't pick for Pilate. He comes back with a question. Well, who's told you that, Pilate? Why are you making that statement? He wants Pilate to make up his own mind. Jesus doesn't make the choice for Pilate, like he doesn't make the choice for us. We're not robots. We have to choose to follow him. Pilate has to choose what he thinks of Jesus. And that's how a real response comes, doesn't it? When I force Fee to watch basketball documentaries on Netflix, she can pretend to like it, but it's nothing like when she actually chooses something to watch herself. Then she really watches it. Jesus wants us to choose to follow him, to make a decision, to believe he is who he says he is. Not just to watch along as somebody else chooses it for us, because you're not really going to be in it then. And if we choose not to follow him, or if we make up all those excuses, then we've actually made the choice actively not to. So it's your choice. What are you saying about Jesus? But Jesus does give Pilate a bite on in the end, doesn't he? He gives him something to bite on. He reveals that he is a king and he has a kingdom. Did you see that? Verse 36, Jesus said, "My kingdom is not of this world." Ah, so you are a king? Jesus says, yes, but we don't need to fight you lot. Caesar doesn't need to be afraid. I'm not coming to get him. My plans are bigger than Caesar. It's much bigger than that for me. Don't you see that? He says, I've come to show you the truth, to bear witness to the truth. Those who have the truth, listen to me, he says. I speak the truth and I show you what the truth is. Jesus' kingdom is the people all through history who've chosen to live under him, under his rule as king and experience his blessing. All those who followed him. And that's the people who are going to be with him forever. Who are the ones who've chosen to be there. And the ones he has chosen to be there. He's done what he came to do, hasn't he? And he has shown us that ultimate truth. He's shown that he's got power over everything. His miracles have shown he's got power over water, over the weather, over the fish in the sea, over the health of people, and over the life and death of his friends. He's shown us that our real need for him. And he's shown that he's the only solution to our biggest problem. He's revealed the truth, the ultimate truth in the world, by pointing to himself. He says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father God except through me. So he has shown us the truth. And it's our choice whether we believe him or whether we make our excuses not to. When you're faced with a program to watch, you have to commit by clicking on that program or on that channel, or by skipping past it. Not following Jesus is a statement of what you think about him. Even if you wrap it up in fancy arguments or philosophy, like Pilate does here, he simply comes back by saying, what is truth, Jesus? He could be a professor of philosophy, couldn't he? or a bloke outside the One Stop. What even is truth, bro? Come on. It's great for you that you think all this stuff about Jesus. I'm so glad you found that and that's true for you. It makes you happy. But it's no good for me. Makes no sense to me. I'm just going to do my own thing. Crack on. You crack on your way, I'll crack on mine. That's fine, isn't it? But if you dig into that, that doesn't make sense, does it? There has to be something that's true. Some ultimate truth about this world, doesn't there? We can't all have our own truths that are actually true. I mean, look at this pen, for example. We could decide all things about this pen. This pen is a rocket ship. This is a fork to eat my dinner with, or a spade for the beach. If you've got an imagination, you can come up with all kinds of things, couldn't you, about this pen? But what is it? It's a pen. It was made to write. And it's a nice pen. Please don't steal it. Everyone is trying to work out what this world is about, what this life is about. There are so many different opinions and points of view and ways to look at things. You don't need to do it on your own, Jesus says. I have come to tell you what it's all about. I've come to tell you who you are, who God is, what life is about, how to get the most out of life. All that isn't a mystery anymore. The question is, what will you decide? Because these are massive claims from Jesus. He says, listen to me and you'll know the truth about yourself, about God, about eternity, and about the universe. It's not different ways up the same mountain. You can't choose your own path and we'll all get to the same place. And I know that sounds offensive to people these days, because I'm effectively saying, if you don't believe this about Jesus, then you're wrong about this world. But if you thought this was a pen, this pen was a rocket ship, wouldn't you want me to tell you that this is actually a pen before you sold your house and your car, gave up your job, invested everything you have in taking a mission on your rocket ship to Mars? Because that's not the truth about this pen. If Jesus is who he says he is, wouldn't you want us to tell you that? If he's not who he says he is, then in this moment before he dies, he's a massive clown, con man, magician, lying through his teeth, isn't he? He's saying he's the king of the universe. What a liar. Or he totally believes what he's saying and he's off his nut. If either of those are the case, then every single person who's ever followed Jesus, the most influential person in history, everyone who's following him now, all those Christians you know, they're following a clown or a nutcase. There's only one other possibility. He can't just be a good man, a nice guy. He is who he says he is. He is king. King over all things. And if he's telling the truth, then this is the stuff you need. He changes the world. He holds the keys to life and death. He has all authority and power. Not just over a country, or over an empire, but over the whole world, over the whole universe. That's what he claims here. We, as Christians, we believe that he is who he says he is. That's why we rattle on about this every week. Because we want you to know it if you don't know it. We want you to have a choice. And if you do believe it, we want you to be confident about what you believe. We're going to live and die by Jesus. But what are you going to do about Jesus? Will you believe him? Will you trust in him and follow him with your life? Or are you going to choose like Pilate does, create some arguments and do away with him? If you do like the sound of it, maybe it's too big a choice just to make right now, but do what you would do with a good film on Netflix. Find out more about it. Ask me, come to the church, ask somebody at church, ask a Christian you know, read the Bible more. Ask Jesus about himself. Find out about Jesus. Don't just flick over him. It might be the biggest choice, biggest mistake you ever make.